أنا مروان الناس وتحية مخرج هذه الحلقة وفي بوميدة.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received the Vice President of Turkey, Cevdet Yilmaz, as part of his working visit to our country. And the Director General of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization has expressed satisfaction at the level of support for startups in Algeria. And as the death toll of the Israeli aggression in Gaza reached 37,626, the UNRWA described as horrible and sad the fact of depriving 39,000 high school students in Gaza from taking exams. And those were the major developments. Now, the full news edition. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received the Vice President of the Republic of Turkey, Cevdet Yilmaz, at the headquarters of the Presidency of the Republic. On this occasion, the President of the Republic and the Vice President of Turkey chaired an extended meeting between the delegations of the two countries. The Turkish official was later received by Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf. The Vice President of the Republic of Turkey visited the Jami' al-Jazair, also known as the Algiers Great Mosque, accompanied by Minister of Religious Affairs Youssef Belmehdi. The Vice President of the Republic of Turkey was welcomed at the entrance of the mosque by the rector of the Great Mosque, Sheikh Mohammed Ma'moun al-Qasimi al-Husseini. The Vice President of Turkey stressed that the Algiers Great Mosque reflects the cultural and civilizational dynamics of Algeria. Let's recall that he arrived in Algiers as part of a two-day working visit. The visit reflects the depth of the Algerian-Turkish bilateral relations marked in recent years by a remarkable dynamic in the economic sphere. And the 55th edition of the Algiers International Fair will kick off today at the exhibition hall here in Algiers with the participation of around 700 national exhibitors and foreigners representing around 20 countries. This international event, which confirms each year its status as a major economic event, will be held under the slogan Exchange Bridges and Partnership and Investment Opportunities with Turkey as guest of honor. And President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense Abdelmajid Tebboune has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers devoted to presentations relating to several sectors, notably a bill relating to the protection of people with specific needs, the project to interconnect the electricity networks of the north and south of the country, among others. The details from Miriam Barshi.
During the meeting, the President ordered to set a strategic objective capable of increasing the cultivated areas in our Great South to 500,000 hectares, notably with the investment of the brotherly state of Qatar on the 117,000 hectares and that of Italy of 36,000 hectares, in addition to national investments on 120,000 hectares. The President stressed that total self-sufficiency is now within reach thanks to the production of 80% of wheat. The President of the Republic ordered the production of corn grains and banned its early harvest. The Council of Ministers gave its approval to conclude a contract for mutual agreement between the Qasida Group and the Ministry of Housing for the launch of a project of University Hospital in Tizi Ouzou with a capacity of 500 beds. As for the project to interconnect the electricity networks of the north and the south of the country, the President ordered further studies on this project. Meanwhile, President Tebboune, the President of the Republic, instructed the Minister of Energy to adopt a technique that reduces the impact of electricity on nature. As for the bill relating to the protection of people with specific needs, the President approved it, in addition to a report relating to the progress of the digitization process.
The Director General of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, Gerd Muller, visited the headquarters of the Ministry of Knowledge Economy, Startups and Micro-Enterprises, where he listened to a detailed presentation on the startup ecosystem and its activities, which reflect the growing international interest in supporting innovation and entrepreneurship in Algeria. Majid Mira has more.
At the beginning of the meeting, the Minister of the Knowledge Economy, Startup and Micro Enterprises, Mr. Yassin Al-Mahdi Walid, gave a welcome address in which he emphasized the crucial role of startups in boosting economic growth and innovation in Algeria, highlighting the importance of creating a favorable environment and a solid legal framework to enable entrepreneurs to succeed. He stressed that Algeria is now reaping the rewards of the strong political will shown by the President of the Republic over the past 4 years, which has placed the knowledge economy at the heart of the public policy concerns, as well as the state's efforts at continental level to promote economic integration, which have given concrete form in the field of startups through the organization of the African Startup Conferences in 2022 and 2023. Mr. Moller expressed his satisfaction at the level of support for startups in Algeria.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has said that business councils constituted one of the main mechanisms of economic diplomacy in establishing mutually beneficial partnerships in trade and investment. He made his statement at the opening of a seminar on the role of business councils in boosting economic diplomacy, which he co-chaired with the Trade Minister Tayyip Zitouni. Mr. Attaf said that the meeting came on the right time, as Algeria is currently experiencing economic growth with clear objectives and notable results.
This approach has widely paved the way for trade and investment opportunities with all brotherly, friendly and partner countries in the spaces of our countries belonging and outside of our country's space. This approval brought back to our national economy its continental position among the 3 most powerful economies in Africa. Africa has opened new and promising horizons to involve the private sector in external trade for national products towards all markets. I would also like to praise the agreement made between the Diplomatic Institute and the Trade and Industry Chamber in the field of training.
Mr. Attaf said this growth is the outcome of the reforms initiated by the President of the Republic and the implementation of its ambitious and promising economic program within the framework of a solid approach aimed at building a strong and diversified national economy. He hailed the positive results obtained by all national economic indicators, notably a growth rate of 4.2%, a GDP of $260 billion, foreign exchange reserves exceeding $70 billion, adding that non-hydrocarbon exports are soon expected to exceed the threshold of $10 billion. And the president of the National Independent Authority for Elections, Mohamed Shorfi, has said that 26 applicants for the presidential election have withdrawn their application forms.
بحد يعني تاريخ أمس عندنا 26 رغم
26 applicants for the presidential election have withdrawn their application forms from the Independent National Election Authority, and we have recorded so far the withdrawal of 2.5 million forms for individual subscription. We should note that July 18 at midnight will be the deadline for representing individual subscription forms.
جويليا 2024 الساعة منتصف الليل.
Let's recall that this came in a press conference at the headquarters of the Independent National Election Authority here in Algiers. The docking of an Israeli warship in the port of Tangier Med in the midst of the aggression in Gaza does not go well in Morocco. For the Moroccan NGO, Groupe d'Action Nationale pour la Palestine, by allowing the ship to dock, the Moroccan authorities were guilty of complicity with the Zionist murderers. The Israeli warship from the United States to the port of Haifa called at the port of Tangiers on Morocco's Mediterranean coast on June 6. This marks a new step forward in military cooperation between the two countries, which normalized their relations in December 2020. The National Action Group for Palestine denounced Morocco's support for Zionist terrorism, which commits unprecedented barbaric massacres against the Palestinian people. And at least 37,626 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since Israeli aggression launched its military offensive, with additional 86,098 individuals sustaining injuries. Mariam Barshi has more.
2 medical personnel were killed and others were wounded in an Israeli occupation shelling of El Darraj clinic in central Gaza City. Israeli fighter jets also launched a violent airstrike on the Zaytun area east of Gaza City. Israeli warplanes randomly targeted citizens in scattered area in Khan Yunis, south of the Strip. Thousands of victims are still buried under the rubble or scattered on the roads due to the high insecurity and lack of equipment. Meanwhile, 1 Palestinian civilian was killed in an Israeli occupation bombing east of a Zaytun neighborhood southwest of Gaza City. The occupation warplanes also targeted Al Mughraqa area north of El Bureij camp in the central Gaza Strip and north of Nusayrat. As for the West Bank, Israeli occupation forces detained at least 12 Palestinians during military raids across the occupied West Bank during the last 24 hours. Israeli occupation forces launched a massive detention campaign during the stormings of the towns of Silwet, east of Ramallah, and Kafr Nehma, and detained at least 59 Palestinians. Israeli forces continue to carry out widespread raids, detentions, and brutal assaults during arrest operations, along with threats against detainees and their families, in addition to extensive destruction and vandalism of civilian homes.
And still with the Palestinian thorny issue, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, described as horrible and sad the fact of depriving 39,000 high school students in the Gaza Strip of exams and more than 500,000 children of education due to the ongoing Zionist aggression in the Palestinian enclave since October 7th. This is according to a press release issued by UNRWA Director of Planning, Sam Rose, written by UNRWA on the X platform. In this line, the UN agency explained that education is a fundamental human right, calling for an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, subjected to a genocidal aggression perpetrated by the forces of Zionist occupation for almost 9 months. And the EU diplomacy chief, Josep Borrell, has warned against the escalation of violence in the Middle East, warning against the disastrous consequences. An outbreak in Lebanon would have serious consequences for the region and beyond, Mr. Borrell said. Collapse and violence intensifies. Before adding, Saturday was one of the bloodiest days since October, with at least 100 Palestinian deaths. In this context, he condemned the blatant disregard of the Zionist entity with regard to the decisions of the International Court of Justice, ICJ, and the resolutions of the UN Security Council, castigating the lack of improving access and delivery of humanitarian aid. According to Palestinian health authorities, the death toll from the Zionist genocidal aggression against the Gaza Strip is rising even more. And to Sudan now, the Director General of the World Health Organization, WHO, has written on his X account that the only maternity and neonatology unit at the Saudi hospital in the city of Al-Fasher, North Darfur in Western Sudan, has witnessed a shocking and horrific attack. Earlier Saturday, Doctors Without Borders announced in a statement that on the night of Friday, June 21st, a bombing by the Rapid Support Forces targeted the maternity unit of the organization supports in Al-Fasher, resulting in the death of a pharmacist while she was doing her job. Still in Africa, and 10 political parties, including Al-Jama, which represent the Muslim community interest, are ready to join the South Africa's government National Unity, which is being formed under the aegis of the African National Congress. Majid Mila.
A statement issued by the African National Congress indicated that in all 10 of the country's 18 parliamentary parties supported the government being formed, while the other parties expressed the desire to join the government in the near future. All members of the latter must give their approval. On June 6, ANC leader and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa launched an initiative to form a government of national unity, as no party was able to secure a majority in parliament following the general elections on May 29. The ANC and the Democratic Alliance, representing the white minority, were the first to sign an agreement on the principles of formation and decision-making within a government of national unity on June 14. This allowed Ramaphosa to be re-elected as head of state for the next 5 years on the same day.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, 14 hours 45 minutes, Algiers time. And on June 24th, the International Day of Women in Diplomacy Day is commemorated. This initiative by the United Nations General Assembly aims to make women's leadership more visible, acknowledge the achievements of women in the diplomatic sphere. More about this day in this program, compiled and presented by Mariam Barshi.
Each year on June 24th, the International Day of Women in Diplomacy is celebrated. This day celebrates and recognizes the contribution of women in the field of diplomacy and international relations. It highlights the importance of gender equality in diplomatic roles and honors women diplomats who have played significant roles in shaping global affairs. Women have participated in diplomacy for centuries, yet their contributions have often been overlooked. Women and girls represent half of the world's population and therefore also half of its potential. Women bring immense benefits to diplomacy. Their leadership styles, expertise and priorities broaden the scope of issues under consideration and the quality of outcomes. Research shows that when women serve in cabinets and parliaments, they pass laws and policies that are better for ordinary people, the environment and social cohesion. Advancing measures to increase women's participation in peace and political processes is vital to achieving women's de facto equality in the context of deep-rooted discrimination. When women are represented in legislative bodies, it enhances the effectiveness of governance and ensures that a wider range of perspectives and experiences are considered in decision-making processes. This inclusivity not only reflects the diversity of the population, but also leads to better informed policies that address the needs of all citizens. However, the unfortunate reality is that violence against women in politics remains a significant issue that hinders progress towards gender equality. Such violence not only violates the fundamental human rights of women, but also poses a serious threat to the participation in the political process. It creates a hostile environment that prevents women from entering politics or voicing their opinions, ultimately undermining their ability to contribute fully to society. Women have long played integral roles in shaping diplomatic relations and advancing international cooperation, yet their contributions have often been overshadowed or overlooked in the male-dominated field of diplomacy. Throughout history, pioneering women have defied societal norms and institutional barriers to excel as diplomats, ambassadors, negotiators, and advocates on the global stage. Their perseverance, leadership, and dedication have not only broken glass ceilings, but also influenced diplomatic practices, policies, and outcomes worldwide. One of the earliest recorded women in diplomacy was Anna Komnene, an 11th century Byzantine princess, who was involved in political affairs and diplomatic negotiations during her father's reign as emperor. Her role as a diplomat and advisor showcased women's capabilities in diplomatic endeavors centuries before formal recognition was common. Many women, among many others, have shattered stereotypes, challenged institutional norms, and paved the way for future generations of women in diplomacy. Their achievements underscore the importance of gender equality and diversity in diplomatic representation, as well as the significant contributions women make to global peace, security, and prosperity.
Hello and welcome to this new edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine, during which we will shed light on a very common health issue that affects many children around the world. Most kids have an excess of energy at times, but the main question is how often do you have to tell your child to slow down, stop interrupting, or stay still? Hyperactivity is a classic sign of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. It also occurs with other conditions. Hyperactivity means having increased movement, impulsive actions, and a shorter attention span, and being easily distracted. A Attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, is marked by an ongoing pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity, impulsivity that interferes with functioning or development. People with ADHD experience an ongoing pattern of the following types of symptoms. Inattention means a person may have difficulty staying on task, sustaining focus, and staying organized, and these problems are not due to defiance or lack of comprehension. Hyperactivity means a person may seem to move about constantly, including in situations when it is not appropriate, or excessively fidgets, taps, or talks. In adults, hyperactivity may mean extreme restlessness or talking too much. Impulsivity means a person may act without thinking or have difficulty with self-control. Impulsivity could also include a desire for immediate rewards or the inability to delay gratification. An impulsive person may interrupt others or make important decisions without considering long-term consequences. The signs of hyperactivity are hard to miss, and they often prompt negative reactions from other people. Until you know the reason behind the behaviors, you may find yourself getting annoyed and thinking that your child is just acting out. But if your child has ADHD, his overactivity is caused by differences in how the brain works. Here are some behaviors that are common with hyperactivity. Talks almost constantly and frequently interrupts others, moves from place to place quickly and often clumsily, keeps moving even when sitting down, bumps into things, fidgets and has to pick up everything and play with it, has trouble sitting still for meals and other quiet activities. Now, what could be the cause of hyperactivity? ADHD is a frequent cause of hyperactivity in children, but it's not the only possible cause. Other conditions can cause kids to move around and talk too much, just for different reasons. Here are some of the issues you may want to read up on and talk about with your child's doctor. Let's explain a bit more what does ADHD mean. ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, is a chronic condition marked by persistent inattention, hyperactivity, and sometimes impulsivity. ADHD affects children and teens and can continue in adulthood. ADHD is the most commonly diagnosed mental disorder for children. Children with ADHD may be hyperactive and unable to control their impulses, or they may have trouble paying attention. These behaviors interfere with school and home life. It's more common in boys than in girls. It's usually discovered during the early school years when a child begins to have problems paying attention. Adults with ADHD may have trouble managing time, being organized, setting goals, and holding down the job. They may also have problems with relationships, self-esteem, and addiction. We should also emphasize that being hyperactive doesn't just mean zooming around the room. Kids may fidget or have extra movements even when doing little things like tying their shoes, writing, or playing an instrument. Kids with ADHD also tend to be impulsive and have trouble paying attention. ADHD may look different at different ages. For example, a preschooler might be accident-prone, while a grade schooler might not be able to sit still long enough to finish his work. Anxiety disorder. Anxiety can make kids restless and unable to focus. Those symptoms sometimes lead people to mistake it for ADHD. It's not uncommon for a child to have both conditions at the same time, however. Hyperthyroidism. Kids rarely have this condition, but when they do, it can cause them to fidget and lack focus. It also often involves eye issues like an irritation or bulging. Inner ear disorders. Kids with inner ear problems are often hyperactive. These kids' need for constant motion may be caused by their hearing and balance disorders. Sensory processing issues. Kids with sensory processing issues can become hyperactive when they are overstimulated or understimulated. How to cope with hyperactivity. Getting to the bottom of your child's hyperactivity is a process that may take a few steps. A good way to start is by observing your child and taking notes. Having these notes will be helpful when you talk to a professional about your concerns, and it may help you get answers more quickly. Here is what you can do to understand what's behind your child's hyperactivity. Talk to your child's teacher. Hyperactivity can affect learning. That's why it's a good idea to reach out to your child's teacher. Together, you can talk about classroom strategies that can help, such as using a secret signal to cue your children to stay on task. Look into an educational evaluation. If you think your child's hyperactivity is affecting his learning, you or your child's teacher can request that the school evaluates him. Depending on the results, your child may be able to get services and supports to meet his needs. That might include things like taking breaks during tests or taking tests in a separate room, where there will be fewer distractions. Talk to your child's doctor. This is also a good place to start. Bring your notes with you to the visit and share your concerns. The doctor may want to rule out hyperthyroidism and other possible medical causes of your child's hyperactivity. There are some questions you're likely to be asked to get a better sense of what's going on. They may include things like how long you've been seeing this behavior, whether it's getting worse, and whether the teacher sees it too. The doctor may also recommend a psychological evaluation to look at how your child thinks and to assess whether he has ADHD or anxiety or both. Talk to specialists. You may be referred to more than one specialist to get to the bottom of your child's hyperactivity. An audiologist would look for hearing problems. A neurologist, psychiatrists, or developmental behavioral pediatrician would look for brain-based medical issues including ADHD, and a psychiatrist or psychologist would diagnose anxiety disorders. Professionals who can prescribe medications for these issues include your child's doctor, a psychiatrist, a neurologist, or a physician's assistant. See a private learning specialist. ADHD can have a big effect on your child's learning. A psychologist can do an evaluation to see what the impact is and if any learning issues are at play. The tests are the same as what they use in a school evaluation. Tutors can help kids develop strategies to keep ADHD from getting in the way of their learning, but tutors not perform formal evaluations. What you can do now to help your kid. Even if you don't get an evaluation, there are many things you can do to find support. There are also strategies you can try to help your child manage his behavior. Just remember to pace yourself. Trying too many at once can make it hard to figure out which ones are working the best for your child and for you. Here are some suggestions. Learn as much as you can. Understanding your child's hyperactivity is the first step to getting him the help he needs. The more you know, the better able you'll be to find ways to help him gain self-control skills. Observe and take notes. By observing your child's behavior, you may be able to spot patterns and triggers. Maybe his activity level rises as the night wears on, or perhaps he has a hard time falling asleep and is overtired. Recognizing the trigger allows you to try different strategies like changing his bedtime routine to have more quiet time and get a full night's sleep. Provide things to fidget with. Let your child chew gum, carry a stress ball, or have some other object to fiddle with. It can help direct some of the overactivity and cut down on your child picking up and playing with other items. Consider martial arts or yoga classes. Physical activities give your child an outlet for his energy. These can also teach your child to be aware of his movements and be in control of his body. Try different strategies. For new ideas on dealing with behavior issues, check out the expert advice in Parenting Coach. You might find helpful tips for handling your energetic child. Connect with other parents. Knowing you're not the only family out there dealing with hyperactivity can make a big difference. Connect with parents in similar situations and share information and advice. It can be a great source of support. Understanding more about what's going on with your child can help you start to get out in front of his behavior issues rather than always reacting to it. Looking at your child's strengths, finding support for yourself, and changing things a little at a time can make both of you feel more confident and in control. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the Health Magazine. Do join us next week for a fresh edition of our program. Until then, have a good time and take care.
إذاعة الجزائر الدولية إشراقة جديدة كل صباح، إطلالة على آخر المستجدات الوطنية والعربية والدولية على مدار الساعة، إضاءة يومية على نجوم الفن والرياضة والاقتصاد وآخر ما تناولته الصحف من تحليلات. إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، نفس إخباري يتجدد.